The world went silent the day the phone rang. It was Uncle Richard, his voice tight and choked. "Amelia, honey, there's been an accident." My breath hitched in my throat. Accidents happened, sure, fender benders, maybe a broken arm. But the dread that coiled in my stomach told a different story. "What kind of accident?" I forced the words out, my voice barely a whisper. A long pause stretched between us, punctuated by a sniffle. "A plane crash, honey. Your parents." The rest of his words blurred into a white noise. My knees buckled, and I slumped against the wall, phone clattering to the floor. 19 years old and alone. My parents, titans of the business world, Amelia and David Brooks, were gone. The following days were a blur of lawyers, accountants, and suffocating sympathy. My parents' will was clear: Brooks Industries, the company they built from the ground up, was mine. Me, Amelia Brooks, a college sophomore with a minor in literature and a major in freaking out. Uncle Richard, Dad's older brother, tried to be helpful. A gruff, old-school businessman himself, he clearly didn't know what to do with a heartbroken, anxiety-ridden niece who preferred Shakespeare to spreadsheets. "You need to be strong, Amelia," he'd say, his voice booming in my tiny apartment. Strong? I felt like a twig in a hurricane. The pressure was immense. Everyone expected me to step up, be the strong Brooks daughter. But the thought of walking into that corporate glass tower, filled with Dad's ghost and 1,000 judging eyes, sent a fresh wave of panic crashing over me. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Juggling classes, therapy sessions, and a crash course in business management left me perpetually exhausted. Uncle Richard, bless his gruff heart, hired a team of seasoned executives to guide me through the legalese and financial complexities of Brooks Industries. 5 years flew by in a relentless blur of board meetings, product launches, and late-night negotiations. The company thrived under my unconventional leadership. We embraced innovation, fostered a collaborative work environment, and most importantly, stayed true to Dad's core values of integrity and ethical business practices. One Friday evening, as I was leaving the office, Uncle Richard stopped me. "Amelia," he said, his gruff voice softer than usual. "You did good, kid. Real good. Your parents would be proud." His words, a simple acknowledgement, brought a lump to my throat. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't just keeping the company afloat. Maybe I was actually making a difference. Maybe it was time for a break. Maybe it was time for Hawaii. Hawaii was supposed to be pure relaxation. All I craved was sunshine, sand between my toes, and zero responsibility. For the first few days, I reveled in sweet idleness. I napped in a hammock like a lizard on a rock, and swam in the ocean until my fingers looked like prunes. But by the third night, the cabin fever kicked in. I showered, threw on a sundress, a rare occurrence for this jeans and t-shirt girl, and headed out to a beachfront bar that thumped with live music. I snagged a lonely stool at the end of the counter and ordered a drink that looked straight out of a cartoon, bright blue, with a tiny pineapple stuck precariously on the rim. "New to these parts?" A voice with a laugh that could melt glaciers came from beside me. I glanced over to see a guy, maybe a few years older than me, with sun-bleached hair and eyes that sparkled like the ocean. "Something like that," I admitted, feeling my cheeks warm. "First time trying a blue Hawaiian?" He raised an eyebrow, amusement dancing in his eyes. "First time trying anything remotely fruity," I confessed, feeling like a bit of a grandma. "I'm more of a coffee-fueled workaholic kind of girl." We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. He was Ethan, a photographer on a freelance gig. He was funny, easy on the eyes, and surprisingly interested in my workaholic tendencies. By the time the last drop of my sugary concoction was gone, I was feeling loose, maybe a little too loose. The normally shy and reserved Amelia Brooks seemed to have vanished into thin air. "You dance?" Ethan leaned in, his voice dropping a notch. The music had shifted to a pulsating salsa beat. I hesitated for a second, then shrugged. "Why not?" We hit the dance floor, Ethan's hand warm and light on my waist. Maybe it was the music, maybe it was the tropical island air, or maybe it was the sugary bomb I just drank, but all my inhibitions flew out the window. But the next morning, the vacation hangover paled in comparison to the real one hitting me. My head throbbed like a drum solo, and a wave of embarrassment crashed over me as I turned in bed and saw Ethan, sprawled out beside me, sleeping soundly. Apparently, my inner dancing queen had also decided on a post-cocktail bed partner. The following moments were a blur of mumbled apologies, Ethan chuckling good-naturedly as he recounted the night's events. I buried my face in the pillow, mortified. Images of me flailing around the room in a sundress flashed before my eyes. Oh God, was I that bad? Let's just say you had a lot of energy, he said diplomatically. Though, gotta admit, it was kind of cute. Trying to salvage some shred of dignity, I forced a smile. Thanks for walking me home, and everything. We talked for a while longer, a strange mix of awkwardness and a newfound connection. But as the sun started peeking through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room, Ethan said it was time for him to return to the mainland. I handed him a piece of paper with my number scribbled on it. Maybe, I said, the word hanging in the air. He took the paper, a slow smile spreading across his face. Maybe, he echoed. A part of me hoped Ethan would call, but with each passing hour, that hope dwindled. 3 months had flown by in a whirlwind of board meetings, product launches, and late-night negotiations. Brooks Industries was soaring, our stock price at an all-time high. Apparently, that accomplishment translated to powerful businesswoman on the evening news. There I was, plastered on the screen, hairstyled, a rare occurrence, suit impeccably tailored, the anchor droning on about my leadership genius. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Amelia Brooks? A voice crackled through the line, a hint of amusement in its tone. Yes, this is she. Wow, didn't recognize you from the news. The voice chuckled. It's Ethan. Ethan? My heart skipped a beat. That couldn't be right. After our drunken Hawaiian encounter, I figured he'd filed me under forgettable vacation fling. Hey, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Fancy hearing from you. Fancy seeing you too, he replied. Listen, I'm in town for a couple of days, and I was wondering if you'd be free for dinner? We made a reservation at a fancy restaurant downtown, a place I'd only ever seen in magazines. When I arrived, my stomach did a nervous flip-flop. Ethan was waiting at the bar, looking like he'd stepped out of a men's fashion catalog, perfectly coiffed hair, crisp white shirt, the kind of designer suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Next to him, in my jeans and trusty work blouse, I felt like a sparrow in a room full of peacocks. A wave of self-consciousness washed over me. Had I misread the whole thing? He spotted me and a wide grin lit up his face. He stood up, his smile turning apologetic. Hey, sorry, he said, gesturing to my attire. Didn't mean to scare you off with the fancy digs. Work thing, you know? I forced a smile. No worries, I said, trying to sound confident. Work dress code for me is more comfort over couture. The rest of the evening was a blur of conversation, peppered with nervous laughter on my end. Ethan was charming, funny, and surprisingly interested in my work. So, he said, leaning closer as we finished our dessert, I know this might sound crazy, but I really enjoyed our time together, both in Hawaii and tonight. I was wondering, would you like to, maybe go out again sometime? Properly this time, without the tequila-induced dance party? A wave of happiness washed over me. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a dream. Maybe, just maybe, I'd stumbled onto something real. I'd like that, I said, a genuine smile gracing my lips. A few months zipped by in a whirlwind of adrenaline-pumping adventures, candlelit dinners at fancy restaurants, and late-night talks that stretched into the early hours. Ethan was the perfect antidote to my high-pressure world. One crisp November evening, curled up on the couch with a glass of expensive wine, Ethan got all serious on me. Hey, Ames, he started, his voice a touch deeper than usual. We've been having a blast together, haven't we? My heart thumped a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Was this it? The question? Shoot, I said, trying to sound cool even though my palms were already slick with sweat. He took a deep breath, then pulled out a small velvet box that shimmered under the soft lamplight. "Amelia Brooks," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "You're everything I ever wanted in a woman, smart, funny, a total boss. And..." He hesitated, reaching into the box. My breath hitched as he revealed a ring that sparkled like a captured star. "Amelia," he continued, dropping to one knee. "Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes. It was happening. The fairy tale ending I'd secretly longed for since I was a kid, flipping through magazines with pictures of giant white dresses and tearful vows. "Yes," I cried, throwing my arms around him so tight I swear I heard his ribs creak in protest. The following weeks were a whirlwind of wedding planning, complicated by a visit from Ethan's mother, a glamorous woman with a perfectly manicured smile. "Amelia, darling," she cooed, her eyes twinkling. "You're going to be the new star of big business. Ethan tells me all about your incredible achievements." The compliment felt a little off-putting, but I brushed it aside, focusing on picking a venue and a dress that wouldn't break the bank, even though I could have afforded anything. Before the wedding bells could even be ordered, my lawyer, a guy who'd practically known me since I was in diapers, thanks, Dad, brought up the topic of prenuptial agreements. "Just a smart move, Amelia," he said, his voice serious. "Especially with your financial situation." We talked about it with Ethan, and surprisingly, he didn't put up a fight. We drafted a fair prenup, separate property stayed separate, and there was a hefty cheating clause with a dollar amount attached that could choke a horse. Let's just say infidelity would cost him dearly. The wedding itself might not have been the extravagant ceremony I could have pulled off, but it was perfect in its own way, small, intimate, and filled with the people who loved us most. After the I-dos, Ethan moved into my spacious house. I surprised him with a brand new car, his old one looked like it belonged in a junkyard, and set him up with access to our joint account. The next day, he quit his photography gig. "I want to take care of things here, Ames," he explained, a hint of nervousness flickering in his eyes. I wasn't sure what that meant, but after the whirlwind of wedding planning, I was happy to let him handle things at home. Life after the I-dos was like stepping into a whole new reality. My mother-in-law, who'd been sweetness and light before the wedding, turned into a walking critique machine. A woman obsessed with appearances, she couldn't stop commenting on mine. "Honey, those pants make your hips look wide," she'd say, her perfectly manicured nails hovering over my outfit. Or, "Darling, a little Botox would really brighten up those eyes." It felt like she wanted to redecorate me. The final straw came when she dragged me to a plastic surgeon's office. Stepping into that sterile, judgmental space made my skin crawl. The doctor, all smooth smiles and designer stubble, started circling me with a marker, muttering about enhancing my natural beauty. "And the chest area," he announced, his gaze lingering a little too long. "Frankly, Mrs. Miller, it needs some serious work." That was it. I washed my face in the bathroom, mascara stinging my eyes, and stormed out. My mother-in-law caught up with me in the lobby. "Amelia, darling, where are you going? Don't you want to discuss the doctor's recommendations?" "Recommendations?" I scoffed. "More like a shopping list for a whole new me." "I don't need surgery, I need you to back off with these stupid suggestions." Even Ethan started chiming in. He'd drop hints about updating my wardrobe or seeing a stylist. "Ugh, give me a break. Honey," he began one evening, "maybe it's time for a new look. You know, for your image." "And maybe," I countered, "it's time for you to get a job." He looked like a deflated balloon. "But I don't want to work for someone else anymore, Ames. I want to be the boss." His words caught me off guard. The boss of what? "An empire," he declared dramatically. "My own company." I raised an eyebrow. "Right. And what kind of empire exactly?" He shrugged. "Something creative. Like, design? Interior design maybe." The idea wasn't bad. Ethan did have a good eye for style, always rearranging furniture and picking out cool throw pillows. "All right," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Let's do it. I hired the best consultants, helped him with the business plan, and even fronted him the initial investment. It was a risk, but I believed in him, maybe a little too much. The interior design firm took off faster than we expected. Ethan, surprisingly, turned out to be a natural at managing projects and charming clients. But his newfound success seemed to change him. He started coming home later, smelling of expensive cologne and sporting designer clothes. The cracks in our perfect picture were starting to show. But I was too busy building his dream to notice them. 3 years. Ethan's design firm had rocketed, fueled by his newfound business savvy and a carefully cultivated image. Today, we were in a bustling international business exhibition, the air thick with ambition and the clinking of deals. Ethan's latest project, a sleek, minimalist furniture line aimed at the luxury market, took center stage. I stood by his side, a silent supporter in his carefully crafted narrative. My contributions, the sleepless nights spent brainstorming concepts, and the meticulous planning that went into launching the firm, had faded into the background. A voice sliced through the cacophony. Amelia. No way. Turning, I saw a familiar face, Mark, a classmate from high school, who'd always been a bit in awe of me. Now, his grin was confident, his suit tailored to perfection. Mark. Wow, small world, I said, surprised. What are you doing here? He puffed out his chest, adjusting his designer suit. Big things, Ames. My firm's presenting our latest line too, sustainable furniture made from recycled materials. Pretty cool, huh? We chatted for a while, catching up on lost years. He seemed genuinely impressed with Ethan's project. This stuff is slick, Amelia, he said, running his hand over a sleek armchair. You have a real eye for design. Actually, Mark, a voice cut in, Ethan appearing beside me. The credit goes to me. She's just here for moral support, buddy. This is my baby, all mine. My stomach churned. This wasn't the first time Ethan had downplayed my contributions, but the blatant lie stung like a fresh wound. Oh, Mark stammered, looking slightly embarrassed. Well, congrats then, Ethan. It's really impressive stuff. The conversation fizzled out, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. Before I could say another word, my immaculately dressed mother-in-law materialized beside us. Her smile, usually reserved for award shows and charity galas, held a hint of something else entirely. Ethan, darling, she cooed, showering him with praise. I always knew you had this in you. Such a natural talent. Then, her gaze shifted to me, her smile turning tight. Leaning in, she spoke in a low voice dripping with venom. And Amelia, she purred, a successful businessman like him deserves a wife who reflects his achievements. Someone more beautiful, more stylish, wouldn't you say? The air hung heavy with her words. My grip tightened on my purse, the polished leather digging into my palm. With a curt nod, I excused myself and moved deeper into the exhibition hall. Talking to enthusiastic visitors about Ethan's project felt like a betrayal, yet the sting of my mother-in-law's words fueled a growing ember of rebellion within me. The adrenaline rush from the exhibition wore off the second we stepped into the opulent hotel lobby. Mark was there again, another unexpected meeting. A wide grin stretched across his face when our eyes met. Amelia, he boomed, extending a hand. Catch you at the exhibition, didn't think I'd see you so soon. Up for a coffee and some reminiscing? I'd love to, I said, then glanced at Ethan, bracing myself for a fight. To my surprise, he just shrugged, his expression unreadable. Sure, Ames. Go ahead. I'm beat. I'll head up to the room. Surprised, I exchanged a hesitant look with Mark. You okay with this? Won't my super successful husband get jealous of his ex-classmate stealing his wife away? I teased, trying to gauge his reaction. He chuckled, a hollow sound that didn't reach his eyes. Nah, go have fun. We'll chat later. With a lingering unease, I followed Mark out of the lobby. We found a quiet corner table in a nearby cafe and spent the next hour catching up. The conversation flowed easily, leaving me oddly relaxed. Back at the hotel, the luxurious suite door swung open before I could even reach for my keycard. Ethan's voice, dripping with venom, filled the room. "Honestly, Mom," he ranted, unaware of my presence, "I can't take it anymore. Living with her, it's unbearable. Haven't touched her in months." My blood ran cold. My own husband, the man who'd vowed to love and cherish me, was talking about me like I was some kind of disease. "I know, darling." Cooed a voice, his mother's, laced with false sympathy. "But you have to be patient. The plan is working." "A plan? What plan?" My mind reeled, piecing together fragments of their conversation. "That stupid interview almost ruined everything," Ethan continued, pacing the room. "That's the girl from Hawaii, isn't it? The one with all that dough? Why did I ever tell you?" The pieces clicked into place. The interview I'd done promoting sustainable design, they must have seen it and realized I wasn't some struggling artist, but someone with money. Greed, not love, was the foundation of our marriage. They'd used Ethan to snag a wealthy wife. Their voices dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. My breath caught in my throat. They were talking about divorce. But not a clean break, a messy, scandalous one. They planned to frame me for infidelity, giving them leverage for a huge payout. Suddenly, Ethan's earlier behavior made sense. Leaving me alone with Mark at the lobby, hoping to manufacture some kind of incriminating evidence. The realization filled me with a cold fury. Taking a deep, cleansing breath, I stepped into the room, my voice cutting through their hushed conversation. "Ready to file those divorce papers, Ethan?" I asked, my voice calmer than I felt. They both spun around, faces etched with shock. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Save it," I said, my gaze unwavering. "You're free, Ethan. Absolutely free." The taxi ride to the airport was a blur of adrenaline and newfound resolve. My phone buzzed in my purse, it was Ethan. Ignoring the call, I used the banking app to freeze our joint account. Let him explain that little maneuver to his mommy dearest. Back in my own house, the silence was deafening. The phone rang again. This time, I answered with a cool indifference. "Amelia, what the hell did you do?" Ethan sputtered on the other end. "My cards are all blocked, and how am I supposed to pay for this damn presidential suite?" "Consider it an early termination fee," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "From now on, you're free of me and my money. Figure it out yourself." The next morning, I marched into my lawyer's office, the same one who'd practically shoved the prenup at me all those years ago. Armed with a stack of documents and a newfound fierceness, we started the divorce proceedings. While the legalese unfolded, I wasn't wasting any time. Ethan's designer clothes, fancy toiletries, and the ridiculous collection of sports memorabilia, all neatly boxed and shipped to his mother's place. A new set of locks adorned my front door, a symbol of the boundaries I was finally setting. The real power move, however, was yet to come. The design firm Ethan ran was actually mine. I called a company-wide meeting, my heart pounding a steady rhythm in my chest. Effective immediately, I announced, my voice firm and unwavering, "Mr. Miller is no longer the director of this company." Later that evening, my phone rang again. It was Ethan, his voice laced with desperation. He babbled about missing me, begging for forgiveness. In the background, I could faintly hear his mother's voice, whispering suggestions in his ear. "Kids?" I scoffed. "Seriously? You think that'll buy you back into my life? Find another rich fool to play your games with, Ethan. I'm done." He stammered something about the car, the one he'd always claimed to love. "Bought with my money, honey," I said, a satisfied smile spreading across my face. "So consider it another perk of your short-lived marriage." Hanging up, a wave of exhilaration washed over me. I'd learned a harsh lesson, but one that would forever change me. The divorce was finalized swiftly, the prenup ensuring Ethan didn't get a dime. With a newfound lightness in my step, I reached out to Mark, my old classmate. We grabbed coffee, catching up like no time had passed. Maybe it wasn't love at first sight, but who knew where this new chapter might lead?